I feel the same way about USAID.
Yeah.
The New York Times and Washington Post credit me for taking down USAID. I'm not even taking credit. But the fact is that I've been painted as the guy who took down USAID. And so if you go to another memo now, George Kennan from the policy planning staff, look up the inauguration of organized political warfare.
The inauguration of organized political warfare.
Organized, yeah. Let's see if that one.
Policy planning staff memorandum.
Yeah, this is
1948.
Yeah, but there's a version that's April 30th, 1948.
Okay,
which is just 12 days after.
Yeah, let's do April.
But you'll see that's on the state.gov. If you actually look at the Wilson Center, that third link there. Oh, right there.
That one?
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. April 30th, 1948. It was up.
Yeah,
there.
this is 12 days after the U.S. Here you go. If you just.
Oh wow, this is the actual document.
Yeah. Now this wasn't declassified, I believe, until 2005, from 1948.
Okay. Do you want to read this?
Yeah, I'm gonna read the key parts of this. But you know what's crazy? I give lectures all over the place to folks in the diplomacy world, and everybody knows George Kennan. Who's really the godfather of modern diplomacy in many ways. He was the first head of the policy planning staff at the State Department, which is one of those powerful places in there. And he was the author of the containment strategy against Russia. The author essentially of our Cold War meta strategy, and he was famously the guy who gave the CIA its plausible deniability powers. He was the author of NSC 10-2, which is the national security memo that gives the CIA plausible deniability, so that gives them their ability to lie publicly.
Yes.
But so everybody knows about NSC 10-2 from 1948, and I've never been in front of a crowd who's ever read this incredible document from just 2 months before NSC 10-2, before CIA plausible deniability, by the very guy. And here's what this says. So the inauguration of organized political warfare. And he goes on to say that this ranges from overt actions such as political alliances and economic measures, which what we would now think of as USAID. ERP here refers to the Europe relief program, the Marshall Plan. Us sending huge amounts of money into Europe for post-war reconstruction, but in return we get political influence over everybody, all the governments of Europe, because they're dependent on us for bribe money. And so he says, so it ranges from those overt actions like our alliances and overt aid, as well as white propaganda, to such covert operations as clandestine support of friendly foreign elements, black psychological warfare, and even encouragement of paramilitary regime change. That's effectively what he's saying here. It says the creation, success, and survival of the British Empire has been due in part to British understanding and application of political warfare. Yep. And this is, if anyone's seen Lawrence of Arabia, I mean, they've been doing this a long time, the Brits. And so they're worried at the time about the Bolsheviks using organized political warfare, and then if we don't create this capacity to have a organized covert operations arm of the U.S. government, then we will lose to whoever does, like they mentioned the Bolsheviks will.
Real quick, Mike, I don't like. There's so much information. Like, I don't like getting you off a flow, but I do have a question there that I think is important.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a middle ground there, as painful as that is,
of course,
in the sense that if you don't do it, someone else will, so you have to do something?
Of course.
Okay.
I have my own opinions on that and how to strike the balance, but I think it's important for people to understand the anatomy of the patient that they're operating on before they make conclusions about how to do the surgery. And most people don't even know the anatomy of the thing. They form opinions and don't even know what they're breaking or messing with before they get there. Because I get a lot of people. I feel the same way about USAID.
Yeah.
The New York Times and Washington Post credit me for taking down USAID. I'm not even taking credit. But the fact is that I've been painted as the guy who took down USAID. And I was put in a weird position because I I think that there is a role for a USAID function in being able to project soft power influence.
Yes.
And the issue is not necessarily that the capacity exists, but that it has gone so rogue, and the way it has defined national interest has become so perverse. I mean, the final straw for me was when USAID was funding censorship laws in foreign countries,
Right.
and not only that, funding censorship laws for the explicit purpose of taking out U.S. social media companies, going after, telling Europe, USAID having formal programs to get Europe to crack down on X and Facebook. You can't do that under the First Amendment. So you have USAID funding foreign governments to go after U.S. national champions. This is what we have USAID to stop.
Right.
When I was at the State Department, we have a national champions policy. We define U.S. interests as being U.S. citizens, U.S. multinational corporations, U.S. resource interests. We run whole operations to protect U.S. companies. And USAID was running whole operations to destroy U.S. companies just because they belong to a political affiliation.
It got so bad that it got so big that it boomeranged back on itself, essentially.
It became the easy button
Right.
to win a political fight. Because it's an organized political warfare capacity that you're sitting on. If you occupy that office, and you're losing the political war right now. So the analogy I give is it's like there's a thumbie war in politics. One side wins, the other side wins. But, if you were just able to cheat and use your index finger, this thing's a lot more nimble, and powerful. If you're not allowed to use it unless you're cheating, but it's always there. It's always there. If they really start getting you up. And that's what this organized political warfare capacity is at state, at USAID, at CIA, at DOD. And here's what Kennan says.
We're back on this document.
We have been handicapped, however, by a popular attachment to the concept of a basic difference between peace and war, by a tendency to view war as a sporting contest outside all political contexts, and by, you'll see he crosses out, by a public yearning for a political cure-all. And he says, let me soften it, a national tendency to seek a political cure-all, and by a reluctance to recognize the realities of international relations. Saying the American people don't understand the need for us to create this dirty work capacity. Now, if you scroll down here, you'll see that it goes on, talks about the Truman Doctrine, and I want to get to the Italy part of this. There's so much good stuff in here. I have a pinned tweet I have a 45-minute video that's pinned to the top of my X account. There you go. And you'll see on paragraph 5 here that goes through this in detail, but. It's at Mike Ben Cyber, by the way. I have a 45-minute video
links
on this.
links down below.
Literally goes through all the highlights. This document will change your entire vision of the Central Intelligence Agency, the national security apparatus, because this is in the moment we were setting it up. And it says, okay, if you scroll to the bottom, it says, and having been engaged, okay, we cannot afford to leave unmobilized our resources for covert political warfare. We cannot afford in the future, in perhaps more serious political crises, to scramble into impromptu covert operations as we did at the time of the Italian elections. What he says in this memo is, God, that Italy operation worked so well. We worked with the mob. We worked with the Vatican. We worked with the Catholic charities. We worked with the unions, and we broke up opposition party meetings. We stuffed ballot boxes. We imported the propaganda arm, and it worked. And you can actually see. I think it was Miles Copeland who published a book afterwards. He was one of the OSS and then CIA guys, the original gang. He wrote a book called Cloak and Dagger, and in the book he says if we had not intervened through the CIA on that election, we would have lost 60-40. But we tilted that election by working with the mob. And he even talks openly, as the guy running that operation, that they work with the mob, they work with the church, and thank God we did that, or else the commies would have won, and then there might have never been an election in Italy again. But I bring that up to say that you have this. They saw the success of that in Italy, and then internationalized that and said, you know what? Actually, this is the template for what the CIA is going to do. It's not just going to be an intelligence collection and analysis arm. It's going to have an operations track. And you'll see here, this is right before that was all created. And if you just scroll down a little, or actually go, I think, yeah, okay, you'll see actually in the top of this page, he says it a dozen times in this. Okay, says where they should be fitted into the structure of this government and how the Department of State should exercise this direction and coordination. And then if you go the next page, there might be 2 pages. Yeah, here you go. You'll see there are all these references. Go one more page over. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry, one more. Yeah, well, covert political warfare must be controlled by the department. He's talking about the Department of State. That's this. The direction should not be physically in the Department of State. This is the more true when it is realized that the considerable funds necessary for such an operation could not be concealed in the Department of State's budget. Thus, therefore, this operation must find cover elsewhere. Such cover would permit a direct chain of command from the Secretary of State as the natural meeting ground for this. And then you'll see there should be promptly established under a Directorate of Political Warfare Operations, and basically says the State Department should run it, but it should be somewhere else besides the State Department. And that is
deniable.
That is where the CIA's plausible deniability authorization came in. This is 2 months before CIA got plausible deniability carte blanche under an NSC 10-2. It's a State Department function. But the State Department does not want to get caught doing this. And if an aspect of, if the operation gets busted, the State Department wants to be able to plausibly deny that they authorized it. Hence, it was given to the brand new spy agency in a brand new operations division.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.